I'm 32 and have been married to my husband Eric for almost 8 years. We got together young, fresh out of college, and he was my first real love, the kind of relationship that felt safe, comfortable, and steady. We've never been one of those fiery passion couples, but we've always had good communication, decent trust, or so I thought. My younger sister Lily is 19. She's kind, a little naive, and still figuring out who she wants to be in life. Our age gap meant I was more like a second mom to her growing up, especially after our parents' divorce. When she dropped out of college last year and moved back home, she stayed with us for a while to get on her feet. I didn't think anything of it. She was family, and I loved having her around. At first, Lily didn't say much about why she left school. She claimed the classes weren't for her, that she was feeling overwhelmed. I assumed she just needed a break. She'd help around the house, hang out with our dog, and even cook a few nights a week. Eric didn't seem to mind. In fact, he and Lily got along almost too well. He was patient with her, always encouraging her to explore her passions and take her time figuring things out. At the time, I thought it was sweet, but that was 6 months ago. 3 months ago, Lily moved out. She told me she wanted to give us our space again, and that she was planning to rent a small place with a friend from high school. I didn't pry. She seemed a little off when she left, like she had something on her mind. But when I asked if she was okay, she just smiled and said she was growing up. That was the last we talked about. Then, 2 weeks ago, she had a baby. I had no idea she was even pregnant. She posted a picture on Instagram of her holding a newborn, captioned, "Welcome to the world, my sweet boy." No explanation, no warning, nothing. I stared at the screen for a full minute before I could even react. My phone started blowing up right after. Family members were calling, confused and shocked. Friends were tagging me, assuming I already knew. But I didn't. Lily had completely kept it from me. No bump photos, no baby shower, nothing. Eric saw the post and froze. I remember that moment vividly. We were eating dinner when I opened my phone. He was halfway through a bite of pasta when I showed him the photo, and he just went pale, completely drained of color. I thought maybe it was just shock, like me. But now I'm not so sure. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept scrolling through Lily's Instagram, looking for clues. Old posts, photos, even vague captions. But she had deleted almost everything from the past year. It was like she wiped her entire pregnancy off the face of the earth. The only things left were old selfies, and this one brand new post with her baby. No father mentioned, no location tagged, no comments allowed. And Eric? He was quiet, too quiet. After I showed him the picture, he barely touched his food. He just stared at his phone for the rest of the evening, saying he was processing. That would have made sense, if it didn't feel so familiar, because I've seen him process like this once before, when I caught him texting an ex behind my back 5 years ago. Back then, he swore it was nothing, that he was just checking in on her during a rough patch, and maybe he was. But his silence had the same weight then as it did now. The next morning, I asked him straight up if he knew Lily was pregnant. He said no. No hesitation, no flinch, but it was too clean, like he'd rehearsed it. He even made a joke. "Wouldn't I have mentioned if your little sister was about to become a mom?" I laughed a little, but not because it was funny, more because I didn't know what else to do. Something in my stomach was turning. Later that day, I sent Lily a message. I didn't want to accuse her of anything. I just said I was surprised by her news, that I wished she had told me, and that I'd love to meet the baby sometime soon. She didn't answer. No thanks, no heart emoji, nothing. Just silence. A full day passed. Then 2. On the 3rd day, she finally replied. It was short. "Thanks. Things have been kind of crazy." No mention of the baby's name, no photo, no offer to visit. That's when I started looking more closely, at old texts, calendar events, times when Lily said she was going out with friends but never posted anything, weeks when Eric said he was working late but came home looking strangely tired and wired at the same time. And one day in particular, about 8 months ago, stood out. It was a Saturday. I remember it because I'd had a horrible cold and was stuck in bed all day. Lily had gone out early. Eric had said he was going to the hardware store and then to a cafe to get work done. He came home late that day, said he lost track of time. I remember that being the first time I actually wondered if something was off between them. Lily barely spoke to me that night, and Eric went to bed early without dinner. I never brought it up. I just let it go. Now I can't stop replaying it in my head. And the worst part? I've seen the baby, and he looks familiar. Too familiar. Not just like Lily. There's something in his eyes. Something I've seen before. Every morning for the past 8 years. In Eric. I told myself I was being paranoid. That grief over being lied to, over being left out, was clouding my judgment. People say babies look like all sorts of people, especially when they're newborns. It's all guesses and projections and wishful thinking. But even with that in mind, I couldn't shake it. The baby had Eric's eyes, that exact gray-blue color that shifts with the light. Same almond shape, Same faint crease in the eyelid. And the mouth. God, the shape of it. Slightly crooked. Just like his smirk when he's pretending he's not lying. I didn't say anything to Eric that night, but I watched him more closely. I started taking mental notes of everything he did, everything he didn't do. And then something strange happened. I brought up Lily again casually, said something like, maybe we should send a gift or go visit her, offer help with the baby, just to see how he'd respond. He didn't look up from his laptop, just said, she probably wants space. You know how she is. Except, that's not how she is. Not with me. We've always been close. She used to call me when she scraped her knee in middle school. I bought her first birth control prescription when she was 16, and too scared to talk to Mom. I threw her graduation party. She tells me everything, until now. Eric didn't just want to avoid visiting. He wanted me to drop it. I could feel it in the way he subtly changed the subject, the way he picked a fight about the dishwasher right after, like he was trying to distract me, so I played along. I smiled. I apologized. I pretended to let it go, and then I waited until he went to sleep. Around 2 a.m., I got up and went into his office. I've never snooped before. I never needed to. But this time, I felt like if I didn't, I'd go insane. I opened his desk drawer, the one he keeps locked with a tiny magnetic key he always leaves on top of the bookshelf, thinking I never noticed. Inside, mostly boring stuff. Tax documents, spare charger cables, old receipts, and one thing that stopped me cold. A crumpled envelope. No card inside, just the envelope. Pale pink, with Lily's handwriting on the front. It said, "For when it gets real." That was it. No date, no stamp, no return address. Just her handwriting, her nickname for E. Not Eric. Not once in my life had I heard her call him that. I sat there for a long time just staring at it. Then I put it back exactly where I found it, closed the drawer and went to bed. Eric never suspected a thing. But that envelope? It changed everything. The next morning, I couldn't look at him the same. He came into the kitchen whistling, like everything was fine. Asked me if I wanted pancakes. Kissed my cheek. I had to physically stop myself from pulling away, because in that moment I felt like I was living with a stranger, someone who had a whole other life hiding just below the surface, someone who might have fathered a child with my own sister, and had been quietly carrying that secret around for months, maybe longer. I couldn't say anything, not yet. I needed proof. I knew Lily wouldn't talk if I just asked her directly. She hadn't even told me about the pregnancy, so I decided to try a different angle. I messaged our cousin Kayla, who's close to Lily but doesn't have much of a filter. I just said I was worried and wanted to know how Lily was doing. She replied almost instantly, said Lily had been weirdly private for months, barely even told Kayla who the father was. Apparently she only told one person, but Kayla wouldn't say who. That hit me like a punch to the stomach, because if Lily didn't even tell Kayla who the father was, someone she's partied with, cried with, shared secrets with since middle school, then why would she tell Eric, unless he was the one? The more I sat with it, the more everything started falling into place. The night Lily moved out, she hugged me tight and wouldn't look me in the eye. I thought she was just emotional about leaving, but maybe she was saying goodbye to the last moment of normal between us. And Eric, God, why hadn't I noticed it before? He'd been strangely soft around that time, not in a sweet way, in a guilt-soaked way, like he was trying to be extra perfect, overcorrecting for something he wasn't telling me. And then there was something I hadn't thought about until now. A few months ago, I found one of Lily's hoodies in Eric's car. I asked him, and he said she must have left it there during a grocery run. I believed him. I didn't even question it. Now I couldn't stop thinking about that stupid gray hoodie with the tiny hole in the sleeve. Needed more. So I waited until Eric went for a run, which he always does on Sundays, and I checked his laptop. He's not dumb. He doesn't save anything scandalous there, but he uses the same password for everything, and I knew it. I went into his email first. Nothing. Then I checked his cloud drive, and that's when I found the folder. It was labeled Work Docs, but inside were 3 files. One was a photo of a positive pregnancy test. The second was a picture of a hospital bracelet with Lily's name on it, and the third, a grainy ultrasound image. There was no caption, no date, just the black and white shape of a baby floating in shadow. My ears were ringing, my fingers went numb. I sat there staring at the screen. As the weight of it all settled in, my husband was hiding evidence of my sister's pregnancy on his computer, and if there was any doubt left about who the father might be, it was gone now. I didn't cry, not at first. There was this strange, cold calm that came over me, like my brain hadn't caught up with my body yet. I closed the laptop gently, exactly how he left it, made sure nothing looked disturbed, and walked into the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the edge of the tub and stared at the floor until the tiles started to blur. Then it all hit me. I wanted to scream, break something, call Lily and demand an answer, or throw the laptop across the room. But instead, I sat there shaking, silent, feeling like a guest in my own life. How do you even begin to process something like this? My husband, and my baby sister? It felt so disgusting, so twisted. I kept thinking back to the night she showed up at our doorstep, with tear-stained cheeks, and asked if she could stay a while. I said of course. Without hesitation, I brought her into my home, into my marriage, and No, I couldn't finish the thought, and still, there was that sliver of doubt. A microscopic piece of me whispering, maybe it's not what it looks like. Maybe those files were saved for her, not by him. Maybe she asked him for help and he just never deleted them. Maybe he's innocent. But deep down, I knew I was clinging to hope, like a drowning woman clutches debris. I didn't say anything to Eric when he got home. I made coffee. I asked about his run. I even laughed at one of his stupid jokes. It was like I'd become someone else. Someone who was pretending, waiting. Because if I confronted him now, he'd lie. I wasn't ready for that. I needed to be sure. I needed something undeniable. Something that would burn through every excuse he might try to feed me. So I made a plan. I called Kayla again, told her I wanted to send Lily something for the baby, and asked for her address. She hesitated, clearly torn about betraying Lily's privacy, but eventually gave it to me after I said I just wanted to drop off a gift bag. I didn't tell Eric where I was going. I just said I had errands to run and left the house. My hands were trembling the whole drive. I didn't know what I was expecting, but when I pulled up to the small apartment complex and saw the door with Lily's number, I felt like I was staring at the edge of a cliff. I stood outside for a full minute before I knocked. The door opened faster than I expected, and there she was, holding him, the baby, and for a second we just stared at each other. No words, no sound, until Lily's face turned pale and her eyes dropped to the floor like she already knew why I was there. She didn't invite me in. She didn't have to. The moment our eyes met, something passed between us. A quiet acknowledgement, not guilt, not denial, just dread. I looked at her, then at the baby, then back at her, and I could tell, without needing a single word, that she knew I knew. He looked even more like Eric in person. His nose, the same exact line along the bridge, the same shape of his ears too. Small detail, but when you've spent almost a decade memorizing someone's face, you feel it in your chest. I swallowed hard and said, I just wanted to see her, to talk. Her arms tightened around the baby, but she stepped aside and let me in. The apartment was tiny, barely enough space for a couch and a crib, bottles on the table, a stack of unopened diaper boxes in the corner. It smelled like lavender wipes and exhaustion. She asked if I wanted water. I said no. Then we sat 5 feet apart, in the quiet hum of a too-small living room, with the air between us thick and choking. She didn't even try to lie. She didn't cry. She just looked at the baby for a long time, then finally whispered, it only happened once. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My tongue felt heavy, like it didn't belong in my mouth anymore. She kept talking, said it was a mistake, that she was confused, that he was there for her when she felt alone, and that he was kind, did kindness. She said it happened one night when I was out of town visiting Mom, said she hated herself after, that he told her it meant nothing, that it would never happen again, that they both agreed not to speak of it. And then, a month later, she missed her period. That's when he panicked, told her to keep it secret, not to tell me, not to tell anyone. He gave her money, told her she could handle it quietly. She didn't go through with it, and she didn't tell him until it was too late. She told him she was keeping the baby, and then blocked his number. That was 6 months ago. She said he hadn't seen the baby, hadn't even asked to, that he didn't want a DNA, that he wanted it all to go away, and yet he kept the photos, the ultrasound, the bracelet, because even though he tried to erase it from his life, he couldn't. Neither could she. Neither could I. I sat there numb as Lily broke down, not in hysterics, not in dramatic sobs, but in this low, shaking way, like her body was breaking from the inside out. She said she never meant to ruin my life, that she didn't think I'd ever find out, and that she'd give anything to take it back. But the baby stirred in her arms just then, and I realized, no matter how sorry she was, this wasn't just a betrayal. It was forever. I don't remember driving home. I must have, because I woke up in my car 2 blocks from the house, parked badly with the keys still in the ignition, and the radio playing static. My head was pounding, my throat dry. The weight of everything felt like it was pressing down on my chest so hard I couldn't breathe. The truth was out. No more doubts. No more excuses. Eric slept with my sister. He fathered a child with her. He lied to me for almost a year while playing the role of devoted husband, smiling at family dinners, brushing my hair out of my face while I read on the couch, all while hiding a baby, his baby, and Lily. Lily let me hold her secret like it was too heavy for her, but too dangerous for me. I don't know which hurts more, his betrayal or hers. When I walked into the house, Eric was sitting at the kitchen table, tapping away on his laptop like it was any other Tuesday afternoon. He looked up and smiled, asked how my errands went, and for the first time in my life I wanted to break something just to see him flinch, but I didn't. I stood there silently for a few long seconds. Then I asked him if he loved me. His face changed instantly, confused, cautious. He said, of course he did. Why would I even ask that? And that's when I looked him dead in the eyes and asked, "Did you sleep with Lily?" Everything around us froze. No sound, no movement, just that question hanging in the air like a knife. He stared at me, really stared, like he was trying to calculate whether to lie or not, whether he could still save himself. Then he blinked and said, "No." That was it. One syllable. One lie. And that's when I knew he wasn't just a coward. He was a monster. He looked me in the face after everything and lied. So I told him I already knew, that I'd seen the photos, that I'd spoken to Lily, that I'd seen his son. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. His hands started trembling, and finally, after a long silence, he said, "I didn't mean for it to happen." That was all he could offer. Not an apology, not remorse. Just that weak, pathetic line people use when they've already decided your pain isn't their problem. I walked straight to the bedroom, grabbed the suitcase I keep under the bed, and started throwing clothes in. No ceremony, no drama, just motion, because if I stopped moving, I was going to collapse. He followed me down the hallway, begging me to talk, saying it didn't mean anything, that it was a moment of weakness. But I wasn't listening, because what he didn't understand is that weakness doesn't last 9 months. Weakness doesn't have eyes and fingers and a birth certificate. Weakness doesn't come with a hospital bracelet hidden in a desk drawer. This wasn't a mistake. It was a second life, and I wasn't going to be part of it. He didn't try to stop me from leaving. He followed me to the door, said my name a few times, his voice cracking like he was the victim. But when I stepped out into the driveway, suitcase dragging behind me, he didn't grab my hand, didn't beg, didn't drop to his knees like I always thought people did in moments like this. He just stood there, watching, like he couldn't decide whether to chase me or let me go. So I made the decision for him. I slammed the car door and drove off with no plan, no destination, just gone. I called my friend Naomi on the way. I didn't have to say much. She told me to come over. No questions asked. By the time I arrived, my hands were shaking so hard I could barely unbuckle my seatbelt. She didn't say a word when she opened the door. Just pulled me into the kind of hug you give someone after a funeral. And in a way, that's what this was. The death of everything I thought I knew. Of my marriage. Of the little sister I used to protect. I stayed on her couch that night. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. I just kept hearing it. His voice. Hers. That baby's tiny cry echoing in my head like it belonged to me somehow. Like I'd been robbed of a child I never planned for but had to grieve anyway. The next day, I called a lawyer. I didn't even wait, because as much as I wanted to scream, to post the whole story online and watch him burn, none of that would give me peace. I needed distance, a clean line drawn in the sand, and still, that night, I made the mistake of checking Lily's Instagram again. She had posted a new story. It was the baby sleeping on her chest, soft sunlight filtering in through the blinds. And then I noticed something chilling. In the background, sitting on the edge of her bed, was Eric, just his shoulder and profile, blurry but unmistakable. My stomach dropped. He hadn't waited a single day. The moment I walked out, he went to her. Maybe he was already there before. I stared at that story for what felt like hours, my heart racing, my hands sweating, because it wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was confirmation. He didn't just destroy our marriage. He chose a new one. I couldn't move. For 10 minutes, I just sat there on Naomi's floor, staring at that blurry Instagram story like it had punched a hole straight through my chest. He was there, in her room, in her life, like it was normal, like none of it had consequences. And her. Lily didn't even bother to hide him anymore. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a one-time thing. This was real. They were real. I felt like I was going to throw up. I had wasted 8 years on a man who turned out to be the kind of person who would sleep with my teenage sister, lie to my face, look me in the eye, and swear he loved me, only to go crawling back to her the moment I left. The thing is, I don't think it was sudden. I don't even think it was about sex. I think it was about control. Because Eric never liked when people walked away from him. Not exes, not friends, and definitely not me. Every fight we ever had ended with him turning it back on me. I was too emotional, too reactive, too cold. Every insecurity he had, he projected onto me, and for years I let it slide. I let him slide, but not this time. This time, I was done playing the understanding wife. I screenshotted the Instagram story before she could delete it. I saved it to my drive, labeled it with the date and time, not for revenge, for court, for truth, because now, I'm preparing for war. Naomi's husband helped me file an emergency request to freeze our joint accounts until the divorce is finalized. Turns out Eric had already withdrawn over $3,000 in cash in the past week. No explanation, no reason, just gone. I canceled every shared password, changed the locks on my storage unit, pulled my name off anything I could reach. I even called our landlord and told him I'd be breaking the lease early. He asked why. I told him, because my husband slept with my sister and fathered her child. There was a pause on the line. Then he just said, "Jesus Christ." And yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I thought I'd cry again that night, but I didn't. I slept hard for the first time in days. The kind of sleep that feels like closing a door, like locking it, like boarding it shut from the inside. Because that chapter, it's already dead. But the next one, that's where things get interesting. 2 weeks have passed since I walked out of the life I thought was mine, and now, I'm no longer grieving it. I'm building something. The divorce papers were officially served last Friday. According to my lawyer, Eric hasn't responded yet. Not legally, but he has responded emotionally. He's sent over 30 texts since then. The first few were angry, defensive. Then came the guilt trips, the begging, the I miss you messages at 2 a.m. I haven't replied to a single one. He chose his path the moment he stepped into Lily's bed, and I'm not going to waste another second giving him space in my head. Lily, on the other hand, she texted me once. Just one line, please don't hate, and maybe this makes me weak, but I haven't answered her either. Not because I hate her, but because if I even try to form words, everything I've held together so carefully might finally snap. She still posts him sometimes, quiet, shadowed, his foot near the crib, his jacket on the chair, her baby's fingers wrapped around his thumb, hiding, and weirdly, I'm okay with that, because now I see them for exactly what they are. He isn't her great love, he's her shame, and she isn't his fresh start. She's his fallback. They're together not because of fate, but because of damage. He burned the life we built to the ground, and she caught the ashes like they were something holy. Let them have each other. Let them lie awake at night, wondering when the next betrayal will come. Because if they were capable of doing this to me, they're capable of doing it to each other. I'm not looking back anymore. I found a new apartment across town, small but bright. I bought my own dishes, my own sheets, my own life, and every morning I wake up a little lighter. There's still pain, of course. I won't pretend there isn't. Underneath it, there's something else growing. Freedom. I enrolled in a course I always said I didn't have time for. I took the job offer I once turned down because Eric wasn't sure about the hours. I even adopted a dog, something we never did because he said it would be too much responsibility. And maybe the best part? I'm not scared anymore. Because I've been betrayed in the worst way imaginable, and I survived it. No, I didn't just survive. I chose myself. And honestly, that's more powerful than anything they'll ever have.